Hi all, welcome to this module 4, wherein we are going to discuss about conditional statement. Okay. Now, by the end of this particular module, you will all be able to understand the fundamental concepts of conditional statement in Python. Then demonstrate the use of if else, else if, and nested if. Primarily, we use the same thing in any other programming language, but the way you write is a bit different. So we will see that. And the other way of making conditional statement use like match cases, which is equivalent to your switch case statement in some other programming languages. So let's begin with this concept of conditional statement. How do you write in Python and so on, right? So let's understand first off is called control flows. Now we understand that when we write a program, typically the code get executed from the top to the bottom in a sequential manner, right? Line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, unless until we don't put any condition as such, right? Now this is quite simple. When we write a simplistic program wherein there is no decision making has to happen, then your code looks to be quite simple, right? Line 1, line 2, line 3, and go on. But there are certain situation arises where as a programmer I need to make certain decisions, and based on the decision I want to change the path of execution, right? And that is what is called decision making principle. So in a way what we are doing is we are actually trying to execute or change the way the execution of the code has to happen. It is not necessary in a sequential manner. Sometimes there is a deviation has to happen and then the code has to execute. And in if you look at programming languages, there are two ways we make it. One by making decisions, which is your decision control, and second one is your looping or iterations. In this particular video, we'll be covering the decision making. In the next video, we'll talk about what are the different ways looping or the iterations can be done in Python. So let's focus our discussion about the decision making. Now, here as you can very clearly see, it's written here that your decision making statement that you are going to make, it decides the directions of your execution of code, right? It decides the direction of flow of your program execution. So not necessarily it is always going to be sequential manner. There is a chance wherein there is a deviation has to happen. So you need to find out alternate ways. If this is not possible, then that is the other way to take it up and so on. We make certain decision and accordingly decide which part of the code is supposed to be get executed. So when you look at control flow statement, there are various ways we can do it, right? And if you are coming from any programming language, irrespective of whether it's a programming language or a scripting languages, we use if conditions, right? So we write on if else, nested if, that is if within another if and so on. And there is something called else if. If you see the last one, here it is written called as an if and elif. If someone is coming from Unix shell scripting, you would have used this keyword called elif, right? And equivalent to that, in other languages we call as an else if, right? But in Python it is called as an elif. Ditto code as Unix shell scripting. Now let's look at a syntax of if. I showed you right in my previous slide there are four ways. We'll look at the syntax of them. Then we'll also see one demo for each one of this. So when you are writing an if condition, now mark very carefully. We write on an if condition. Typically, if you are coming from some other programming language, we do a general mistake. A small mistake we do is nothing but a colon. Now, every time you write on an if or an else if, it has to end with a colon. Otherwise, it's become a syntax error. Now, I have already told you that when we create any block of code, right, whether if, else if, or any loop that you're going to see later on, when you write a block of code or the body, then we don't enclose within a curly braces. Then in Python, we believe on a principle called indentations. So here, if this particular condition is true, I want to execute these two lines of code, and they has to be indented to the right. Right? You need to be very, very careful. Now take a look at this example. Here it's a very simplistic example. Okay, you are saying age is equal to 10. If age greater than equal to 18, mark very carefully, guys. This colon here. Huh? Now, after if there are two if print statement we have. Now, which is the print statement is part of if and which print statement is outside the if entirely depends on the indentation that has been given to it. Look at very carefully the first print statement which is written valid as for voting. that is actually indented to the right. That is the only line of code is going to be get executed if the if statement is true, right? The other print statement that you see, it is outside the if block. So whether your if statement is true or false, the last print statement anyway is going to work. Look at the indentation that has been given, right? So for if statement, there is only one line of code to be executed in this particular case. Take a look at if else. It's very simple one, right? You have an if condition. If the condition is true, this line of code will execute. If this particular condition is considered to be false, then this else part of the code would run, right? This is easy. But again, for if ending with a colon, or you can see this else ending with a colon, you have to give it. Let's take a simple example. Here you see, again I'm expanding the first example. I'm saying if age less than 18, then you look at this two print statement, right? These are the two print statement. Because this is indented to the right, this two print statement belongs to if. But carefully see below else, you have got three print statement written. But this two print statement is part of the else block because it is indented to the right, wherein the last print statement is outside the if else block. It is not part of neither if nor else, it is outside the if and else block. So that is, this very clearly tells you, right? I mean, how do you specify an indentation, what it makes, how does it makes a difference to my code outcome and so on, because curly braces you cannot give for creating a block of code in Python. I hope if and else if code looks to be easy. Take a look at the next one. Generally we do a nested if. Nested if is nothing but within one if you are going to write on another if statement, right? It's like within a condition you're putting another condition within. So you can have, just take a look at what I have highlighted very carefully. Look at, this is the if statement. Within that I have got another if statement. You can see it is indented to the right, right? So that is why this if statement that you see inner if is actually out inside the outer if. So it is like a if within another if statement. So you can take a look at the example. Take a look at the else part of the story here, right? In the code, like look at the else part of this. In the else, inside else, you can see another if statement I have written. That means if age is not greater than 60, greater than equal to 60, I will land up in else. But within else, I am again validating, is this age is greater than equal to 18 or not? If it is not, then else part of the code would run. So you can see within else, I have got an if statement again, right? This is nothing but nested if statement you are writing, right? The last one is if, elif and else. Your elif is equivalent to else if statement in any other programming language. We don't write else if in Python, because if you write on else if, it becomes nested if. So if anybody, as I said, right, if anybody has done Unix shell scripting, else if you write in Unix as elif, right? So here the syntax is if the condition, else if the condition, you can have another else if followed by a condition, the last one is an else statement, right? So this elif is nothing but an else if condition. So if this condition is not true, then else if will be checked. If else if condition is not true, then next elif will be checked and so on. If none of them is true, then the else block of the code will execute, right? General concept in any programming language. There is no difference you're going to find it in Python apart from the keyword called elif. So take a look at this example. I have a variable called score which is holding a value called 70. I wanted to know based on your score in which grade you are actually landing in, right? So I said if the score is greater than equal to 90, your grade is going to be an A, right? If your score is greater than equal to 80, your grade is going to be B. If it is greater than equal to 70, then grade is C. Else your grade is going to be D, right? So based on the value this particular score field has, accordingly you land up either in if or in else if, first else if, or in the second else if, or in the else. As you can see in this particular code, it matches to my third else if block, which is nothing but if the score is greater than equal to 70, what should I do? So ultimately the result what I am going to get, my grade is going to be C based on what score I have received. I hope it is clear to all of you, the four way of making decisions that you have seen in this slide as well as in the previous slide. Now the next way of making decision, if you remember in some other programming language, we uses a concept called switch case, right? There is a small difference between a switch case and the if statement, right? Now which one is easy? If you have done in some programming language, which one is easy? You would always say switch case is easy. If is bit different than a switch case. Reason is very simple. In a switch case, we actually compare only equal to sign, right? But in an if and else if, we can actually use any relational operator that you have learned, right? Switch cases only goes for equal to checking. If you remember, in any switch case statement that you have written, we never use any operator, right? The default operator is considered to be an equal to sign. That is why switch case is easy, switch case is faster. But if and else if gives me a lot of flexibility. That is why it is slower, right? If you have read some books, it says every switch case statement can be converted to an if, but every if cannot be converted to a switch case. That means if has got all the flexibility where switch case is not. Switch cases only believes on a principle called equal to sign. Just take a look at this. So you are going to use a keyword called match followed by the parameter. This parameter is nothing but variable which I am going to validate. Case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4 and so on. In some programming language, at the last switch case block, we write on either a default or a star. In case of Python, it is called as a case space and followed by a space, and then you provide an underscore. That means it is like otherwise or a default. That means if none of the switch case statement matches to your value, then the default switch case will get executed, right? So this is a different way of writing default or a star in some other switch case block, or a if you remember, every switch case we write, the last one we put as a default. So if the switch cases are not matching, any of the switch cases are not matching, then you go ahead and execute the default part of that. So this is what default case switch case statement. Just take a simple example to elaborate further. Anyway, we have not seen functions, but don't worry. Let's think there is a function name called weekday which takes one argument, right? Let's start from here. I'm actually calling this particular method called weekday, and I'm passing 3, right? So the 3 is nothing but this n. The n is holding 3. I will say match followed by n. I wanted to check this n value. If it is equal to 0, then I will display Monday or return Monday. If the n value is equal to 1, then I will return Tuesday. If the n value is 2, I will return Wednesday. If the n value is 3, then I am going to return Thursday, and so on. Now, by looking at this particular code, what is your expected outcome? What it is going to return me? Look at the n value is going to be 3. So first case is not matching, second case is also not matching, third case is also not matching, but this fourth case is matching. So what it returns me, that it is a Thursday, right? Now let us think of a case, instead of 3 I have written 13. Now if you see all the switch cases that I have, I am not validating anywhere for the n value as 13. So then the default use case will execute, which is nothing but case underscore. And in that particular case, I am supposed to get a return value as invalid numbers. Is it fine, guys? Is it understood the switch case statement, how it is to be written in a Python? There are two ways to make decisions, right? Either using if and the varieties of if that you have seen in my previous slide, and now we are looking at switch case. Is it okay to all of you? Anyway, we'll see the demo next. So let me show you the demo now. Okay. I'll just go back to my browser and I'll show you the demos. Right. This is the first example for if. Right. There's the same thing what you saw it in my slide. Let me run this. So because your age greater than equal to 18 you are putting, and your age is 18, I mean just 10. So this is not going to execute the if statement. It is execute the outside the if block. So what I'll do is I'll modify this and I'll say make it 20, and let's run this now. It says ram, this is a valid age for booting, and it is you are actually outside the if block. So this particular statement, this print statement will run irrespective of whether your if condition is true or a false, right? Come back to the next example. You are validating for age less than 18 and else, right? So if your age value is less than 18, then this is going to get execute. If your condition is false, then this else part of the code will execute. Look at the last print statement. This print statement is neither part of if nor part of else. It is actually out of if and else. Take a look at this code and see if it is working fine. Is it okay? Okay. Let's go to the next one. We are seeing an example of if and elif. Same code as in slide. I have explained you that. Let's run it and see. It says Ram, your score is 70 and your grade is C, because your value is 70 and this particular switch statement matches to that, and that is why the grade value returns as Coming back to the next one, wherein we are checking for within if another if statement you are writing, which is nothing but a nested if. So let's run this code and see is it working. Now you're mentioned the age value as 40. Is this age is greater than equal to 60? Answer is no. Come to the else. Within else you are checking is this age is greater than equal to 18? Answer is yes. If that is the case, what I supposed to print is nothing but an adult. Is it fine? Is this nested if also looks to be fine? The other one that you saw as part of decision making is nothing but a switch case, which is nothing but a match case. And we are passing the weekday a value called 3. Let's run this and see. Are we all okay that it returns a value called Thursday because it matches to the criteria? Please remember in a switch case or an if else, only one block of the code will work. Only one block of the code work. That's it. Right? I think it is the same thing, but what I'll do is instead of saying 3, let me put 13. Let's run this now. Is it okay now if I call the same but passing a value called 13 and for n value I'm not checking for 13. So it is obviously is going to execute the default one, right? Sometimes there is a need comes in a single case I wanted to validate more than one value. That means if I say my if my n value is either 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, please return it as an official working day. If my n value is 5 or a 6, you return it as a weekends. Right? Let's call 3 by passing 3 and let's call by passing 6. See is that output is fine. When I'm saying 3, it's actually validating the first switch case statement. And it says Ram, it is an official working day for you. If I say 6, then it comes down to the second switch case and returns me, oh Ram, it is a weekend for you. Is it understood by all of you or any doubts? Is it understood guys? I'll go back to my slides now. So what we discussed in this module, right? We wanted to take we're just talking about a control statement, and in that we are talking about only decision making process. So we talked about a conditional statement. We discussed about conditional statement like if, else if, and nested if. And we also look at how a match case can execute, which is nothing but switch case statement in any other programming language, right? So that concludes this particular module on control structure, and typically we discussed here as decision making process. Thanks a lot to all of you guys.